stop yourself from answering. Stop yourself from being like, oh, you know what? And giving some more information and say, tell me more, 1 or 2 times more than you are comfortable. And you can use a variation on it. You can say why, or tell me more, or that's interesting. What about that? I feel like I have made so many sales when people don't even know what I actually am selling, just because I've stayed curious and connected.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. The key to getting investors on board is to understand what they want. And the more curious you are about what it is they want during the discovery process, the better you're going to end up. Now, today's guest understands this. As the co-founder of Somersault Innovation, she has pioneered bringing the tools of design thinking to help people stay focused on who they serve in the sales process and ultimately grow their own revenue or, of course, raise money. Now, the results have been significant in terms of pipeline growth, deal velocity, and also new revenue. Now, she's helped all kinds of clients like Microsoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, AT&T, and many, many others. And she's also the author of the Amazon bestselling book, Naked Sales. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Ashley Welch to the show. Ashley, thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Happy to be here.
Excellent.
And I love this conversation of bringing all of this stuff that we've been doing a lot in tech into the investor real estate world. So
excellent. Well, good. Well, now, guys, before we go on, if you like what Ashley has to say, you can reach her via her website at somersaultinnovation.com. So go ahead, check out her information. She's got really good stuff out there. Now, Ashley, maybe go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit more about how you got your start in the world of sales.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I have been in sales for over 25 years. I think I don't know that I was very intentional about sales. I always liked business, but I started working at a leadership development company because I just liked what they did and I liked the people there, but found that I had a knack in sales. So started when I was in my 20s selling leadership development programs and stayed there for the next 20 years in sales and just grew my acumen for sales, I think, because I like people and I'm curious, and it is through this curiosity that I became proficient at sales. And then 6 years ago, started Somersault Innovation with my business partner, Justin Jones. And we started Somersault because we had fallen in love with the methodology of design thinking, which I can share with you more what that is. But it's really basically this customer-centric process around innovation. And once we started the company, we just wanted to be teachers and coaches of design thinking. We realized that, wait a second, there was a lot of the tools and techniques from the world of design that sellers could use to grow their accounts. And so we started to play with this idea of bringing the tools from the world of design, which are like empathy, curiosity, doing great discovery, sort of looking for insights about your customer that can reframe the problem. And then this notion of co-creation. We started bringing all those tools into the sales environment, starting at Salesforce. And as you said in the beginning, the results were phenomenal. And it's not because it's rocket science, but I think it's because it's a lot of times it may be common sense, but it's not common practice. Because I think in sales, what happens to all of us is that we get sort of obsessed with the number, we get obsessed with the money or the payout, and we sort of lose track of the end customer, and we become narrowly focused on what we want and care about, and we miss all sorts of evidence and opportunity. So these tools help people grow, and that's what we've been doing for the last 6 years.
Yeah, well, and I think that understanding more about what design thinking is going to be tremendously helpful, because one of the questions that many, many people have, especially the ones getting started in this business, is how do I go about raising money? Like, how do I talk to people? How do I put all this together? And it's kind of like, it's a big question mark when they first get into it, because it's brand new to people, obviously. We all started somewhere, right? And I think that design thinking might be very helpful if they understand what it means and how it works, right? So maybe explain a little bit more about what design thinking is.
Yeah, well, first let me say why I agree with you. So designers, any designer who's going to start innovating, right, has to come in with the belief that they don't actually know the answer. Right? Like, otherwise you're not innovating. It's not innovative. So design thinking is used when we always say, your assumptions outweigh your knowledge. When the issue is complex, when you don't really know, that's a great place for design thinking, because you're entering it just with a beginner's mindset, like an idea of curiosity, and I'm just here to learn. Just like you're talking about the folks that might be entering into this space and not really knowing the industry or not knowing what their end user cares about. So design thinking is just a recipe. It's a process. It's usually 5-stage process with tools that you follow to go from sort of your idea of innovating something to the end solution. And I'll give you an example in a minute. What's different about a design thinking process that from a regular problem solving process is that you start with, forget about any idea. Let's say I want to develop a cup for you, for sort of the masses. Instead of thinking like, oh, I know, I can create it out of metal and I'm going to make it this size and look like this. I start with like, forget about my best idea. I'm just going to watch Agostino drink. And I'm going to talk to him about like, when do you drink and why do you hydrate and why do you not hydrate? And just find out everything I know about you and others around consumption of liquid, and then build whatever I want to create based on what I understand about my end user. So if you think about many companies are using design thinking now. If you think about any Apple product, it's come out of a design thinking process. Google, Capital One, Virgin Airlines, Quip toothbrush. I don't know if you've seen the commercials for Quip. They're everywhere. All of this has come out of a design thinking process. So what Quip did is they studied people. They wanted to come up, they were in the sort of toothbrush space and they wanted to come up with a new toothbrush. So they studied people who were brushing their teeth, hopefully all of us. And they talked to dentists and, they started to learn about why we brush our teeth, how long we brush our teeth. They found out that something like, it's a totally large number of people don't brush their teeth twice a day, only once a day. Or how long people don't brush as long as they should. And so they used everything that they learned in order to come up with this innovative toothbrush, which is, of course, a subscription model because everybody wants to do that. But it's a really cool toothbrush, beautifully designed, really easy to use. So that's what design thinking is. It's just a process that's really keeping the end customer at the center of every step of the way so that you increase the chance of delighting your end customer and reduce the risk of failure.
Right. And I'm sure people are thinking, yeah, but I'm not selling toothbrushes or cups. I'm selling real estate. And how does that apply? It's like, and the same thing works though, right? In terms of making it about what they want. And in many cases, many of these people, they're looking for cash flow. Maybe they're looking for appreciation. Maybe they're looking for it to keep money away from Uncle Sam and put in some sort of tax deferred vehicle. I mean, it's really understanding what they want and then getting the right, matching up that product with that person, right?
Exactly. And I think one of the things you touched on is this idea of, you might think investors, well, what do they want? Money, right? Done. I know. But so often it's so far beyond what we think we know. And I always say this, like emotions will trump logic 7 days a week. We are human beings who make decisions based on emotions so often, not the logic that you would think that we would be smart enough to understand. And therefore, as sellers, we need to understand what is the emotional quotient behind the person we're selling to. Like, what do you really care about? Like, do you care about family? And therefore, where that money, who's inheriting it or what you're creating for legacy, like all of these things that are far beyond just the dollars on a page. Yeah. And actually, I'm curious what else you would say. Like, what are some of the things that have surprised you around investors you work with in terms of why they want to invest?
I've had people that said they wanted to leave a legacy. That's my personal as well. My personal why is I want to leave a legacy for my family when I pass away one day. So, but I've had other people, they'd say, like young guys who'd never know that they would even say this, is that they don't have anything special in their life, but they want to build up this giant portfolio for their church. Nothing wrong with that. That's okay. That's a very different way of thinking too, right? Yeah. It's a whole different pitch. Yeah. It's a whole different why, and there's other people that all they care about is the money, and that's okay too. Whatever the case may be, and that means you're going to be tremendously returns focused,
Yes.
and they may take on a little more risk because of it, right? And that's the thing. It depends on the deal, and for instance, maybe that person that is looking, all they're looking for is money. That's it. They may not want to have a low return, say, or a nice return triple net lease. It's not enticing enough for them, right? They're going to want something a little more aggressive. That's a different deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said is like everybody has a different why. And, one of the things we talk a lot about is this idea of continue to ask the why. So you get down to different levels. So this person you talked about who wants to invest so that he has money for the church, my next question would be like, why? Well, tell me more about that. Like, and you get the stories and you start to getting deeper into this emotional layer of really understanding why and what motivates them, so that's where you can start to connect with them. Because if you can connect at that level, you become a partner, right? It's no longer a transaction, right?
That's
I'm
right.
a partner. I understand what's meaningful to you.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, too. I think it's even take a step further. Things that I've done anyway, is try to understand, like say in that same scenario, they want to leave money for their church. Why? Well, because I want to serve underserved communities in some of these terrible cities, for lack of a better term, right? But then if you're able to then connect, okay, well, if you're able to get X amount of cash flow from these certain deals, and you can automate all that returns, go straight to that church to make sure it goes into the hands of the people that need it the most. Now you're actually creating the whole plan for them, and make their eyes open up and say, where do I sign for this? Like, how do I get this rolling? Yeah. Where you're basically, you're showing them the possibility. And not only that, you're showing them how to execute on that possibility as well. It's very different.
Yeah. Well, I'll also give you a couple tips in terms of like this, figuring this out with people. Like, I think a lot of people will ask us, well, can you teach curiosity? And my answer is yes. Some of us are born better listeners or more curious than others. They just have an aptitude for it, and others not. But there are these tricks from the world of design that can help you like develop this curiosity muscle. And there are 4 things we suggest that people pay attention to in a conversation. So let's say it's this conversation with the gentleman who wants to invest to leave money for his church. If you hear high or low emotion, that's a place to dig in and say, tell me more, or why. So let's say he says, I am, so committed to this church and this community, and I want to leave my money. So of course he's animated, right? He's excited. That's high emotion. So you'd be like, well, that's interesting. It seems like you really care about that. Tell me more. Or same thing, if someone was super frustrated or, down on something, you'd say, well, that sounds like it, it's hard or frustrating for you. Tell me more. So when you see emotion or what people value, dig in, find out more. Where you see a contradiction, someone wants to leave money for the church, but they no longer attend. Oh, that's interesting. All it is like clues that there's some information underneath that. So you'd say, well, that's interesting to me. Can you tell me more? Where you see a hack or workaround, where people have done something to get around a system, means that there's an unmet need, right? The simplest hack is like you tie a ribbon on your suitcase so you can find it when it comes out of the baggage claim, or at least we hope we will in the future. That is exactly a hack, right? You'd say like, well, why did you do that? Oh, because I can't distinguish mine from the others, right? Simple. But we do crazy shit all the time to make things work for us. And I'm sure that investors do, or real estate agents do. And then surprises, anything that surprises you, like that you wouldn't have thought of. If it comes up as a surprise in a conversation, say, that's surprising. That's interesting. Can you tell me more? And every time you do that, it just opens up more like portals of information that give you, the seller, more sort of fodder to work with and a deeper connection.
Yeah, and I would even ask, when you're listening for those high or low emotional states, you're listening for the excitement? Are you listening for also the speed at which you're receiving the information? Like, are they talking faster? Are they raising their voices? Is that the kind of stuff you're listening for? Are you, like, I'm assuming you are, right?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way. What I'm paying attention to is any cues you're giving me around things that you care about. And it could be speed, it could be you're leaning in, it could be, how you're using your hands, something that gives me a clue like this is something meaningful to you.
Yeah.
I need to know more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it shows that you genuinely care about what it is they're saying, and they'll pick that up too. Because if it
Yeah.
sounds like it's very transactional, then you're not going to win that deal.
Yeah,
You won't win their trust. That's
exactly.
the issue.
I was just trying to find a place to do like a cleanse, a health cleanse, and I found this place in Florida, and I was calling her and I was talking to her, and it was kind of complicated what they do, so I was asking her questions, and she literally was like reading to me on a sheet the answers, and I was like, talk to me, like I don't even want to go there anymore because you clearly are not paying attention to me and just responding to what I care about. And so, that's sales, right? If we are not invested in really understanding the other person can feel it physically, and it's a
Yeah.
turn off. We all know that, but I think sometimes we just get lost, as I said in the beginning, in terms of like, I don't know enough, so I'm going to read off my script. So I'm going to go down my list of questions. I'm nervous about the possibility of like, what if I don't know the answer? And yet the authenticity of just staying curious and open, is so much more valuable than like, I have to be smart, so I have to prove that I know everything and I'm just going to go off my script or stick to my questions.
Yeah. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that people they just lack that curiosity?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does that actually happen? I mean, and I know you said it's something that can be learned,
Mm-hmm.
but to me, if it comes naturally, it's way easier, obviously,
Yeah.
because it's But I
Yeah.
guess why does that happen?
Well, I think a couple things. I think there's something in our world now that I think this notion that expertise would trump curiosity. Like, we have to prove that we're smart, that we're worthy, because that's what you're paying me to do, or that's how I believe that's my self-worth and value, is that I'm smart. And so therefore I come in with wanting to show you, I am smart, and I'm going to tell you all the stats I know, or I'm going to tell you what I know about you. Versus just staying curious, because I think for some people, curiosity feels more ambiguous. It feels like a little bit unknown territory. So I don't really know where you're going to take me. And so that's one reason. And sort of the counter to that is what we know about human beings. And if you've ever read Amy Cuddy, she's great. She was at Harvard and she wrote Presence. And she talks about this notion that as human beings, first we're looking to connect on warmth and trust, and secondarily expertise. And the reason is thousands of years ago, I needed to know, like, can I trust you that you're not going to kill me? I don't care if you can make a fire. Right now, I care, like, am I going to live through this? And then secondarily, I care about your expertise. And so much of warmth and trust comes from curiosity and connection. So that's the way we are wired. And so it's another reason why we should stay curious.
I know it's funny. It's funny actually to reiterate that, because I think that's absolutely super important. That many people forget that we have all these cars and airplanes, and we have all this technology around us all the time. At the very basis of what we are, we're still animals, and we have the whisper of 10,000 generations in our ears all the time, with all that old style survival technique stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there, runs every single day in the background.
Exactly. The other thing I was just saying is, you were saying that I think what else gets in our way of staying curious and open is stress, and our own monkey mind that's like constantly going, and we're anxious about something, or we're stressed out about something, and I literally can't pay attention to you, right? Or I'm so focused on closing the deal that I'm not actually paying attention to you. So I think there are many, many very real reasons that get in the way of our best curious selves.
Yeah, and on that note too, there have been times when I would jump on a phone call with someone that's trying to sell me something, and
Yeah.
I can tell that their mind is elsewhere. They're not focused on me. And then I just fine, I get off the phone, stop wasting my time. But then they'll message me 6 months later and say, "Hey, how you doing? Do you want to jump on another call?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to jump on a call with you. Are you kidding me? No, you ignored me last time. You wasted 20 minutes of my life. I'll never get back. What do you want to talk about now? What do you want me to listen to you talk about?"
Yeah. And, I think the question for all the listeners, and both of us even, is, Okay, well, we know that, right? You know that. I have an experience of all the time. But when do we even get caught into not listening as well as we could, or moving too fast in a conversation before that other person is ready, or until we really understand them? I will, I've got half an hour, right, on the call, and I've done my best curious self in the beginning, but now we're getting to the end. So I'm like, all right, do I need to transition this now to, like, do we want to talk about costs? Is that the right time? And, I think having the conversation with ourselves about what gets in our way, even if we understand the power of curiosity and do it fairly well, what still gets in our way of being appropriately connected and curious?
Yeah.
And when is it the right time to sort of pivot into a different mode?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, for the people listening right now, I will offer this advice when it is talking to investors, and that is to be curious about what they want, talk to what they want, present a possible solution. It doesn't have to be whatever the deal is you're going after right now. It doesn't have to be that one. And then postpone, wait, get another meeting, get a third meeting, get a fourth meeting,
Yes.
Because I've seen, as a matter of fact, I was watching a TV show with this big time investor guy, and he was now put into a different situation that nobody actually knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He delivers his pitch as if he is still that guy, that the big time investor, but now nobody knows him.
Mm-hmm.
He was terrible. He sucked. He was, because he was relying on his own background, as opposed to turning it around and seeing what they want. And when you're at that stage, when you're at the beginning stages, you have to. I mean, you always should prioritize them, always.
Yeah.
Because they're always looking out for number one.
Yeah.
Always. Number one is me.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
I also think, I don't know if you've read Freakonomics, but Stephen Levitt is one of the authors. And I listened to something he was on, and he was saying, someone was asking him about, like, you're studying all this stuff all the time. How do you know enough, to really get enough data? And how do you go into these interviews? And he said, well, I don't have time basically to know all this stuff. And actually that makes me a better listener and more curious, because I literally don't know. And I think sometimes that's, again, this idea of, like, we think we have to know. And it's not to say don't do your homework, but there is so much power in just coming at it like a child. Like, I really don't know. So, just tell me everything, and staying open like that. We've done it with, like, account teams, and we'll bring in the customer, and we'll connect the account team that doesn't actually work with this customer, and have them talk just with a spirit of empathy and curiosity and openness to learn things they don't know. And inevitably, they actually uncover a new area of opportunity because they didn't know anything coming in, and they weren't focused on something. And inevitably, the customer on the other side will say, I've never had a conversation like that with your salespeople before. And so just by, again, like, sort of removing all these assumptions about what's supposed to happen or what you're supposed to know, often uncovers more.
Yeah. And I think, too, one thing that I've also found, and I'm sure that your team has done the same thing, they're almost being consultative. They're listening, and they're connecting the dots proactively for them. They're guiding them down the line, as opposed to just listening, nodding your head. Oh, please tell me more. It's like, no, that's fine. You can do that. But it sounds to me like to come up with a solution for them. And I think maybe you only get that through experience, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And probably confidence that, we can figure this out together. The other thing I think that we've really lifted from the world of design thinking is this co-creative notion, which you and I are much more likely to create a deal that's bigger and that we both sort of we both commit to if both our fingerprints are on it, right? So to the extent that I can go, and some sales teams call it side by side, like, let's get on the same side of the table instead of across from each other, and really co-create this deal or whatever it is, investor package together, you're much more likely to sign off on that because now it's become yours.
Yeah. 100%. And that part is huge, especially when it comes to raising capital, because it's one thing that we always say when we're doing this is, hey, listen, we have, like, down the road, of course, after they know, like, and trust you, then it's like, okay, listen, we have a deal. Here it is. Here's XYZ. Here are the returns. Here's how it fulfills what the goals that you're looking to fill. Would you like to partner with me on this deal?
Yeah.
That's the key. There might be a limited partner versus a general partner. The GP is the ones that put it all together, but they're still a partner.
Yeah.
And that part is absolutely huge, because if they feel like they are partners, which they are,
Yeah.
you're just using the right language. That's all you're doing, right? And then they're going to feel like, okay, I am part of this deal, and they are part of that deal.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, it's not only language, but it's your mindset. It's your intention. Like, your intention is that they are a partner, not that you're just like manipulating the situation by using these choice words.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Now, what sort of tricks do you have in terms of making it more effective to apply these techniques, or do you have any tricks?
More effective to apply them.
Yes, or maybe in a way of discovery or something like that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about discovery. So, I think in discovery is where a deal is sort of made or lost, right? The quality of your discovery is very much related to the quality of that deal at the end of the day, like how large it is, how much of a partner you seem. And so we're always urging sellers, regardless of what you're selling, if it's an important deal, to spend a little more time in discovery. And discovery means learning things that you don't know that aren't just related to what you sell. So if you're only trying to discover the problem that my solution fixes, you're going to miss all sorts of things that could lead you to something so much bigger. So first of all, stay a little longer in discovery. And then secondly, there are these different techniques that you can do to do good discovery. And so one of them is this idea of sort of really putting yourself in your customer's shoes. So if your customer is an investor, how can you put yourself in their shoes? Like, how can you figure out how they invest, or what they invest in, or what they care about? So you can do this in a variety of ways. You can do this by just talking to them, right? Just being curious in a conversation and saying, hey, I just want to spend some time really understanding your world. Like, can you tell me about a day in your life? And let me ask you some questions about it. Another technique that's great is like, show me. Very simple. Show me means, Agostino, can you show me, like, do you have like sort of a dashboard on how you keep track of your investments, or a dashboard for how you keep track of the opportunities that are coming through to your area? Can you show that to me? When you get someone to show you something, it gives you so much more information than just telling me, because there's certain things that you wouldn't even think to tell me that I can pick up on what I see, and then I can ask you about it. So show me, put yourself in your customer's shoes, have a deep dive conversation, talking to other people around them, like who your investors serve. So who actually would you say are the customers of your investors? Who, like, if you have an investor that's going to invest in your real estate, who are their customers?
That would probably be the tenants that live there.
Okay. So to the extent that you can understand these different customer sets around your customer, the tenant being one of them, to figure out what they care about, and then use that information to bring back to your investor, that's an interesting conversation to have.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're a little further removed from actually their end customer. So if you could, let's say it's a low-income housing area that they're investing in, if you could go find out a few things about that group of people, that makes you go right into the trusted advisory, role, or consultative role, which is what we're all trying to do.
Yep. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Now, Ashley, if you had one piece of bulletproof advice for someone listening, what would you tell them?
I'm always looking for some radical answer that I can offer you.
I know, right? That's what it is, right? What is a one piece sentence going to change everyone's life? You must have it.
I do. I have it. And it's already what I said. Just say, tell me more. I have a friend, when we talk about this, he's like, anytime I'm in a conversation and I'm kind of stuck, I'll just be like, tell me more. He's like, it works all the time. He's like, I just get more information and we have a better relationship. So it's simple, but like, stop yourself from answering. Stop yourself from being like, oh, you know what? And giving some more information, and say, tell me more. one or two times more than you are comfortable. And you can use a variation on it. You can say why, or tell me more, or that's interesting. What about that? Feel like I have made so many sales when people don't even know what I actually am selling, just because I've stayed curious and connected. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Ashley, you can reach her via her website at somersaultinnovation.com. Hope you got some insight on how to use decision thinking to help build your investor funnel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.